As video games continue to grow, we're seeing many more survival experiences take center stage within this industry. And that's why today we're going to be taking a look at some of the biggest and best survival games that are coming soon. But before we break down these games, I do want to share a message from today's sponsor, AppBounty. As some of you may have known, I've worked with AppBounty before, and it is an amazing app for iOS and Android on getting free and unlimited gift cards for the PlayStation 4, Xbox One, and Steam. A lot of huge survival games are coming, like the ones we're about to discuss, and this is a great way to earn some free money towards purchasing those games. All you have to do is go to appbounty.net or the link in the description, and you should be prompted for an invitation code and use Legacy to get a free 50 credits and download the AppBounty app for Android or the Blue app for iOS, and make sure to turn push notifications on to get the best experience. After that, all you have to do is download apps to earn credits, and whatever ones you don't want, you can go ahead and delete. AppBounty can be used in many countries, and you can earn gift cards not just for gaming, but for other things like iTunes, Amazon, Netflix, and much more. Either way, it is an amazing app that I've used for quite some time now, and a huge thank you to AppBounty for sponsoring this video. Nonetheless, make sure to let me know what games you're looking forward to in the comment section below. Let's begin here at the 13th spot with Remothered Tormented Fathers, which is an indie survival horror action adventure developed by Stormwind Games and Daryl Arts. The game is described as the movie-like gaming experience with realistic and extreme gameplay, created for survival horror fans. The plot of the game reads as so: Rosemary Reed, a fascinating 35-year-old woman, reaches the house of a retired notary, Dr. Felton, who is affected by a mysterious disease. The woman is greeted by Miss Gloria, the nurse who takes care of the old man. When Rosemary reveals herself and her true intentions, the terrifying dread begins. Rosemary's investigation will bring her to believe that the disappearance of the man's daughter, Celeste, actually hides a terrible massacre. Dr. Felton and his wife, Ariana, could be the only ones to know the truth, including the secrets behind Celeste's real identity and a fanatic cult of cloistered nuns in red. Other than the protagonist looking somewhat like Jodie Foster, the premise behind this game does seem very interesting. In a lot of ways, this also looks like a Clock Tower spiritual successor, and for that reason alone, I'm definitely hooked into this narrative-driven experience. But following that, to the number 12 spot, we have Frostpunk, which is a steampunk survival game being developed by 11-bit studios who are well known for creating the War of Mine. Frostpunk is a city builder. You build and expand a city using the endless expanse of ice around you to turn into steam to power your machines. But the game is also about the lengths you will go in order to ensure humanity survives on a frozen world. Frostpunk's official description reads as so: become the leader of a steam-powered city, the last bastion of humanity. Oversee your society, manage resources, and make difficult, ambiguous choices. But whatever you do, always remember, the city must survive. The developer has been asked whether this is similar to The Sims, in which they pretty much described this as really pushing players with decisions. Some of those included are: would you make children work, and what would you do with the elderly? It really is an interesting survival concept that seems to stress that no matter what, the city comes first, and for that reason, this has to be one of the most compelling games coming in the near future. Now to the number 11 spot, we have Heathen, and it's an action-adventure episodic survival game being developed by an indie team, Frog Factory. The game story, which is at the center, is based on H.G. Wells' The Island of Dr. Moreau, and it reads as so: the English expedition, Perry and Scott, discovers an island populated by strange and ferocious creatures, half human, half animal. They were created by the famous Dr. Moreau. Perry, a scientist and biologist, resumes his work. At a time when the abolition of slavery comes to grow worldwide, Scott, a wealthy industrialist and close to the royal family, sees huge potential in those beasts. Cheap, hardworking manpower, easily renewable, and gifted with remarkable physical abilities. In just 20 years in secret, Perry and Scott will create hundreds of these beasts and build an empire. Inevitably, however, humans will lose control of the island. The north is occupied by humans, trapped and hidden behind their walls, while the rest of the island is populated by various generations of beasts, which are often hostile towards each other. Most degenerate very quickly and fall in bestial madness. This is where your story begins. You are one of the beasts. Your task will be long and difficult: explore, develop, understand, and reclaim the island while respecting the law of Moreau. And this is a title that has been in development for a while now, and I will say I do like the story concept, and the only gameplay that we have seen is from alpha, so it may be a little too early to judge. The game certainly has potential, and I'm hoping to see it evolve over the next couple months because it certainly looks intriguing. At the 10th spot, we have Wild, which is an open-world survival adventure game developed by French developer Wild Sheep Studio. Wild is set during the prehistoric Neolithic period in a procedurally generated world of seemingly infinite size. The players control a human and can use smaller animals to spy on others, or larger animals to support the player and their tribe in fights with other humans. Animals can be controlled by using Shamnik-like powers. Once possessing an animal, the gameplay moves to the point of view of the controlled creature, and then proceeds using the skills and characteristics of that animal. We oddly have barely heard anything about Wild since 2015, and it still looks like it's an interesting experience. I have to expect that sometime soon we're going to be getting a release date and probably new footage showing the changes that have come in the last few years of development. Either way, this surely is a PlayStation exclusive to keep an eye on. Now, at the number 9 spot, we have Project White. It's an open-world Viking RPG being developed by The Outsiders, which is a small team led by ex-Battlefield and Payday developers. The game tells its story through the viewpoint of a creature rather than that of its Viking-esque warriors. This game will be taking in a diverse range of influences. Project White is inspired by monster movies, surrealist poetry, heavy metal album covers, and many other sources that fascinate the studio's team. But the main inspiration comes from John Gardner's Grendel, which tells the Beowulf epic but written from the point of view of the monster. As you can gather, not much has been released about this game so far, but it will be releasing sometime in 2017, and the developers are aiming to make a huge experience. It's not just killing humans, it looks to be much more than that, making the role-playing experience something different than a lot of the RPGs that we've seen so far. And at number 8, we have ASHEN, which is an open-world survival, combat and exploration-based video game set in a fantasy environment in development by indie developer Aurora44. It's set in a sunless world and tells the story of a character seeking a home. Gameplay is described as including open-world exploration, cooperation or completion with other players, and combat with in-world monsters. The game is presented in a third-person view with a muted cel-shaded graphics presentation. The game has been described as containing gameplay elements of classic role-playing games such as King's Quest, as well as games such as DayZ. If Dark Souls and Journey were put together, I have to believe ASHEN would be what you get. Revealed at E3 2017, it was one of the gems to come from Microsoft's conference. Very little has been shown, but there's a lot to like, and I'm not too sure how far this game is in development, but I'm excited to see more from this. To the number 7 spot, we have Escape from Tarkov. It's a Russian tactical first-person RPG survival shooter being developed by SCAPE Games. The game revolves around the incessant warfare with Tarkov, where you'll battle well-armed gangs and have to choose which military corporation side to take on, the Bear or USEC, and then the player's character will start to make his way out of the city. Tarkov is sealed off by UN and Russian military, supplies are cut, communication with operational command is lost, and in these conditions everyone has to make his own decisions on what to do and how to get out of the chaos-ridden city. Currently, Escape from Tarkov is in a closed beta, and the current test build allows players to choose of one of 3 factions available in the game, with the ultimate goal of gathering and extracting loot littered around the fictional city of Tarkov. The release version will be a story mode where players will attempt to solve the mystery of Tarkov through 10 maps, one more grueling than the next. After completing all 10 raids, you will have an open free roam mode where all the borders have been removed for up to 64 players. The game aims to have an extensive weapon customization, whereby an entire weapon can be stripped and modified to the player's liking. A skill tree is included which grants the player various perks and skills. This game has been in development for a while now, but everything about it seems so compelling. It still seems the full release is further down the road, but right now it is exciting seeing and hearing about all the improvements coming to this game. Now to the number 6 spot, we have The Evil Within 2, which is a third-person psychological survival horror video game developed by Tango Gameworks. The plot of the game is described as so: Detective Sebastian Castellanos has lost everything, including his daughter Lily, but when given a chance to save her, he must descend one more time into the nightmarish world of STEM and face the evil within. Horrifying threats emerge from every corner as the world twists and warps around him. Will Sebastian face adversity head on with weapons and traps, or sneak through the shadows to survive? For his last chance at redemption, the only way out is in. Very similar to the previous installment in the franchise, you will have the ability to play stealthily or completely disregard the sounds and kill everything in your way. Played from a third-person perspective, players need to survive encounters with sadistic enemies and twisted creatures, including bosses. Using guns and melee weapons, progress through the levels, avoiding traps and finding collectibles. I will be the first to admit The Evil Within's first game didn't blow me away, but I really do like the creepiness coming to this sequel. The main issue that I had with The Evil Within was that there was quite a few issues in terms of animation and mechanics, but my hope is with this sequel is that it will be much more polished, and so far I really do like where the narrative is heading, and it definitely feels much stronger this time around. Now to the number 5 spot, we have Hunt Showdown, which is a survival horror multiplayer video game in development to be published by Crytek. The game's official description reads as so: in this tense match-based first-person player versus player monster hunter from the makers of Crysis, you will face off against unearthly horrors in the forgotten corners of the world. You will hunt and you will die, but without risk there can be no reward, and when the water runs with blood, you better hope it's not your own. We've only seen a small look at this game so far, but at E3 2017, Hunt Showdown received critical acclaim, receiving Destructoid, Game Informer, and PC Gamer's Best of E3 2017 award. IGN also described the game as an intricate blend of survival shooter, team exploration, and dynamic open world horror with just a pinch of roguelike RPG thrown into boot. Originally, this was intended to be a spiritual successor to Darksiders. This game has endured a long and crazy development, but I think we all have to admit what we've been shown thus far looks exciting, and it definitely is a title to keep your eyes on. And at the 4th spot, we have State of Decay 2, which is a survival video game developed by Undead Labs and published by Microsoft Studios. It's set 15 months after the events of the first game, the world hasn't gotten much better, and things will soon become even more complicated. Develop each character's traits and skills to improve their capabilities and strengthen your community. Collect resources to build and fortify your base, unlocking crucial new facilities and valuable community options along the way. Elevate your favorite survivors to leadership roles in your community by heeding their advice and completing their goals, and unlock new community benefits and objectives that suit your leader's ideals. Manage your relationships and goals of your survivors to build a strong community that has a lasting impact on the future of your world. Play solo or for the first time in the State of Decay franchise with up to 3 of your friends. I was really hoping to see this in late 2017, but waiting a bit longer is fine by me. State of Decay was a huge surprise, and Undead Labs have done a great job thus far at improving on a lot of the features from the previous game, which gets me excited to this time play with other players through co-op and build huge communities. At the 3 spot, we have Days Gone, which is an open-world action-adventure survival horror video game in development by SCAPE Studio. It's set 2 years after a devastating global pandemic. Set in the Pacific Northwest, we play as Deacon St. John, a bounty hunter facing a brutal struggle for survival, searching for a reason to live. At its core, Days Gone is about survivors and what makes them human. Desperation, loss, madness, betrayal, friendship, brotherhood, regret, love, and hope. It's about how even when confronted with such enormous tragedy, they find a reason to live. Hope never dies. In addition to human drifters, marauders, and militia, Deacon must face a wilderness overrun by freakers, mindless feral creatures more animal than human, but very much alive and quickly evolving. Freakers have needs, habits, and behaviors that the player can learn and adapt to. I think we all can agree that the zombie genre has been a bit oversaturated, but there's something special about Days Gone. It really seems that SCAPE Studio is concentrating on the human interaction through this brutal zombie-infested world, which I feel is a nice move and could set up for some great storytelling and overall a great game. Now to the number 2 spot, we have Metro Exodus, which is a semi-open world first-person shooter video game developed by 4A Games and published by Deep Silver. It's set in a post-apocalyptic wasteland of the former Russian Federation. The player must cope with the new hazards and engage in combat against mutated creatures as well as hostile humans. Set in 2036, continuing the story from Metro Last Light's redemption ending, the player assumes the role of a 22-year-old Artyom who flees the Metro in Moscow and sets off on a continent-spanning journey with Spartan Rangers to the Far East. Artyom first travels around the Volga River, not far from the Ural Mountains, to get a ride on a locomotive known as the Aurora that heads east for a new life. The story takes place over the course of 1 year, starting in harsh nuclear winter in the Metro. Another major character returning from the previous game and the book Metro 2035 is Anna, who is now Artyom's wife. Development of this game began in 2014 at 4A Games Studios in Malta and Kyiv. Personally, this has to be one of my most anticipated games of 2018, as this franchise is one of my favorite. Metro 2033 and Metro Last Light were just phenomenal and underrated survival horror games, but it does appear Exodus will have more variety with adventuring to different parts of Russia. But once again, we will still play as Artyom and continue his travels, hopefully once again seeing the Dark Ones who promise their return at some point in the future. And lastly, to the number 1 spot, we have The Last of Us Part 2, which is an action-adventure survival horror video game developed by Naughty Dog. The first trailer revealed the return of Ellie and Joel, whose story takes place 5 years after the first game. Players will assume control of Ellie in contrast with the first installment, which was also centered around love. Drunkman, the game's director, has stated that this game will be centered around hate. Development of The Last of Us Part 2 began in 2014. Troy Baker and Ashley Johnson will reprise their roles as Joel and Ellie respectively. The game's story is written by Neil Druckmann and Haley Gross. The game will utilize new motion capture technology for its characters as well as an entire new engine for the PlayStation 4. Very little is known about the story aside from the trailer, which teased the Fireflies returning and a beat-up Ellie who looks extremely angry. The Last of Us was such an emotional journey, one of the best games I've ever played, and Neil Druckmann really stressed that they wanted to create a story worthy for Joel and Ellie. Right now the game is in its early stages, but it's awesome to see after the masterpiece of Uncharted 4, Naughty Dog is gearing up for another huge title. Anyway guys, those are 13 of the biggest survival games coming in the near future. Thank you for watching. Make sure to smack that like button if you did enjoy this video or found any informative value, and let me know down in the comment section below what survival game you think looks the most compelling and interesting, and maybe something that you're considering buying. Anyway, consider subscribing for a lot more videos on upcoming games, and I'll see you later.